All right, so we are recording. Cool. Coming at you live from Venice and Johnson from a small fishing town in Portugal. But yeah, thank you guys for joining. I think this is our 16th ever knowledge drop. It's pretty awesome that we're well up into double digits now. And if you guys haven't ever joined before for one of these, basically how it'll work is we'll give Johnson the first half, so about 15 minutes to get through his slide deck and share all his wisdom, drop it all over the place on us. And then hopefully we'll have 10 minutes or so at the end for you guys to have some question and answer time. If you have questions that pop up throughout his talk, just feel free to use the question and answer box or the chat box, and we'll get to those at the end of his slide deck. Because yeah, you guys can't really come off mute and chime in because we're on the webinar version of Zoom right now. But yeah, use those two chat boxes. Let us know what you're thinking about, questions that come up. And yeah, the whole thing is getting recorded, as I mentioned, so this will be in the Knowledge Drop archive at the end of this, so it'll be yours to share with whoever you think might benefit from it. If you have any friends who are particularly unproductive and you're like, you guys need to learn from my guy Johnson over here. But yeah, this is super fun for me. Johnson was in my group when I was a program leader, if you guys didn't know that. It's a little piece of RY history. So it's fun for me to connect with him over this. But thanks for joining, and I'll give it over to you, Johnson.
Thanks for the intro, Travis. I'm also sitting in a cafe kind of thing, so if the noise gets too much and you guys can't hear me and you want me to repeat something, just let me know. So I took a quick look at the list of participants. I don't think I see any names that I recognize, but wherever you guys are in the world, thank you so much for making time and hopping in.
Sam Tom's up in here, Johnson.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I just checked too.
Hi, Sammy. Okay. Let me share my screen and just make sure that you guys can see everything.
Perfect.
All right. How's that looking?
Beautiful.
We all good?
Well played.
I can't see the Q&A anymore, so maybe Travis, you can.
I'll just chime in if something pops up. Otherwise, we'll save it for the end. So.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all you, man.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. So thanks everybody for joining this this knowledge drop. I'm just going to take the next 15 minutes or so just to tell you a little bit about how to be a productivity nerd, and just how to get things done. This is kind of just a personal passion of mine, and I've given this talk a couple times before when we were going on our trip for RY3 Cousteau with Sammy and Travi, and I just wanted to share this with the rest of the nation as well. All right, so let's get started. What's about to drop? So 3 takeaways that I want you guys to kind of just start thinking about, and I'm just gonna inception them into your brain right now. So the first thing is think of productivity as a very simple mathematical formula. And it's just basically the habits that you have and the tools that you use to kind of reinforce those habits. And that's basically how I've split up this talk. I'm going to cover some of the habits, how to identify them, and then also some of the tools that are out there that you can use to help you reinforce those habits as well. I'm also going to talk about how you can make good habits and make sure that you keep them. And then, just trying out some of the different tools that are out there so that finding the right one that's going to work for you and work in the way that your brain works is going to be the most important thing for you guys. Just in terms of why I'm dropping this. And a lot of this is basically coming down to just how big of a nerd I am. So first thing is I'm something called a certified Scrum Master. If there's anybody in software out there, you know what this means. But basically a Scrum Master is basically kind of like a productivity nerd, somebody who just helps the software team stay productive and protects them from being distracted by the CEO or unnecessary work. The other thing is that I'm coming from an electrical engineering background, so I'm very much about continuous improvement, kind of always looking for the most efficient way forward, always optimizing and trying to figure out the best use of my time and energy. And I think the other thing that's also very relevant is that I started my own consulting business at the beginning of RY, and I think jumping into RY is a leap of faith enough, but then also starting your own consulting business while on the road, trying not to be distracted by all the really cool events and weird things that Trav and Sam planned for us, weird and fun things that Sam and Trav planned for us, and just really managing your time across all these different facets of your life while being on the road. I think I learned a lot through all those things, and I think I just want to share those things with you guys since I'm not sure where along the RY journey you are at, but hopefully some of these things are going to be helpful for you. All right, so productivity. I feel like this is something that a lot of us just talk about and obsess about, and I think it's good to just kind of take a step back and think about what does productivity mean. And there's a classic definition, right? So the classic definition of productivity is just the rate at which goods or work is produced and completed. And that's straightforward enough, but it's also kind of vanilla and kind of boring. So I like to think of productivity just as getting shit done. And when you get shit done, it makes Kermit a very, very happy frog. So when I think of productivity, I mentioned this before, and it comes down to the simple math of habits and tools. So let's first start talking about habits. So habits are the repeated actions that you take, whether conscious or unconscious, and it's the daily things that you do. And you can also break this down into kind of several categories. So you can start thinking about how do you work? Are you more of a single tasker or are you a multitasker? And there's a lot of science out there that shows that in spite of all of the multitasking prowess that we put an emphasis on, our brains are physiologically not suited to be multitasking, and we are actually much better at focusing and doing single tasking. And there's actually a cost to multitasking where if you are constantly being pinged by notifications or you're constantly being distracted by a coworker or checking your emails and switching between your email and the actual work that you're doing, there's a cost to it where it could actually take you about 20 minutes before your brain actually readjusts and adapts to the new task that you're working on. So if you think about that, if you are actually being constantly bombarded by notifications and distractions, and you don't even have 20 minutes for your brain to kind of readjust and realign and refocus on what you need to work on, then you really aren't giving yourself and the work that you're trying to accomplish, the most attention to actually think analytically and think deeply and really problem solve and kind of move the needle forward on that piece of work. So that's just something to kind of start thinking about, whether you're a multitasker or a single tasker, and how you are able to also protect your attention and your time. And I think one tip that actually works really, really well is actually just putting kind of focus time on your calendar, so that if somebody, if you're in a corporate environment or even in a startup environment, but if somebody has access to your calendar, they're not just going to, they don't have full control over when they're going to set that meeting, right? So if you actually just put 2 hours on your calendar to just say, okay, during this time, I'm just not going to be available, then whoever's going to schedule something, they have to schedule around that block of time already. So you're already protecting your time and attention. And then, so aside from how do you work, you can also start thinking about how do you play and how do you rest. So, play can mean anything to anybody, but it's kind of like off time, right? When you're not working, what are you doing to kind of engage the rest of your mind and your body? Are you going out and exercising? Are you doing yoga? Or, are you actually literally playing? Are you playing games? Are you playing musical instruments? Are you just doing things outside of work that are also habitual things that allow you to engage other senses in your body, because that also allows you to kind of rest and allows your brain to make new neural connections when you're not really just focused on one single thing. And I think the last thing to think about when you start thinking about habits are there's a lot of science that's gone into studying habits, and um, a lot of successful people say that in order for habits to really stick, you have to have the persistence to actually stick to them for at least 22 days. So, just shy of 1 month. So, say for example, you wanted to start journaling as a new habit. In the beginning, the first couple of days are going to be really, really hard, because you have to kind of get over that mental barrier of trying something new and forcing yourself to do something that maybe you might not enjoy immediately. But the trick is, if you can actually persist and keep up with it for at least 22 days, then after that period, that habit can actually start becoming something that is much easier, and there isn't that kind of like mental barrier anymore. It becomes something that almost becomes second nature, and in that way, by definition, becomes kind of a habit for you guys. So just keep some of these questions in mind as you start thinking about the habits that you currently have, whether they're good or bad, and think about the habits that you want to start developing, so that you can, become more productive and progress on the projects that you want to work on, or progress on the dreams that you want to accomplish.
I think a thing too that's like cool for remote years, just that we have this like 1 month at a time setup. So like maybe just expand the 22 days to whatever the 28 days are, and just think about it for like this month that I'm in, wherever, Lisbon or something. I'm gonna just start meditating every day. I know Trisha actually does that. She does like 1 month challenges for herself all the time, and some of them stick and some of them don't. But I think, I don't know. That just made that connection that the science says 22 days. We're pretty close to that in the format of just how we travel on remote years. So maybe challenge yourself to do it for a full month, whatever your next month is.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. And actually, for us, we had a guy, Tom Hussey, who actually did that while he was traveling with us. And every month he did the same thing, where he would try a different habit and a different challenge. And I think for one of the months he did the cold shower challenge. So in the morning you wake up, and the first thing that you do is you take a just cold shower. And like productivity gurus and experimenters like Tim Ferriss and athletes and a lot of other people actually swear by this, because there's a lot of physiological benefits, that the shock of the cold water actually makes your brain produce it like triggers your immune system so that it actually becomes stronger. And it also just it wakes you up. So instead of coffee, this is what a lot of people do, just to wake up. And I've tried it for I'm from New York, so in the mornings in the summer, when it is hot enough, I'll do this, and it's an amazing kind of feeling. It's horrible when you are stepping into the cold water, and you always have to kind of I take a deep breath before I step in, but I never regret it afterwards. After the 3 minutes under the cold shower head, I'm ready to go. So yeah, that's a real cool way of doing it. All right, so I just wanted to show you guys a quick thing for, so we're talking about habits in general, but for me, this is kind of my morning routine that I've developed over the past year or two. And you can actually see that I keep my morning routine in something called GitHub. A lot of software developers use it, but I'm actually using it because I can also keep track of my revisions. So you can see there's 7 revisions as I've kind of iterated and continued to make changes on my morning routine. But I kind of break it down into mind, body, mind, and soul, and it's kind of my way of slowly engaging and kind of waking up these different aspects of myself. And so, when I wake up, I make my bed, I drink water, I do power yoga stretching, wash my face, and then for my mind, I try to read a book or a magazine while I'm eating breakfast. I'll play some brain training games. And then the other things is I start thinking about what are my 3 highest priority things that I want to get done today for either my work. And then for the last part, I do something called a 5-minute journal, and I'm going to talk about this later, where you just answer these 3 very simple questions, but they help you kind of set the tone and set your intentions for the rest of the day. So for the 5-minute journal, you just say, what would make today great? And you just kind of list things out in bullet point. It can be very simple things, or it can be very aspirational things. But just listing those things out also helps you get into the mentality of keeping those things in mind keeping those things in mind throughout the day, so that you actually prioritize making those things happen. And then the second question is answering, what are you grateful for? And that also just puts you in a positive mindset of just reflecting on the good things that you do have, and being thankful for those things. And the last one is affirmations. So affirmations, when I first started doing affirmations, it felt a little weird because it's almost kind of like self-hypnosis. You kind of, you say like, oh, I know that I am creative, or I know that I am assertive and I don't know, and funny or something. And it feels kind of weird kind of just saying those things about yourself. But I think if you actually turn these things into a habit, it's also a good thing, because I think so much of the time your internal dialogue is actually very critical and can be actually very negative. I wish I was more XYZ, or why was I so stupid for doing something. Whereas these affirmations, and starting the affirmations at the beginning of the day, are also just a really nice way for you to kind of set that tone and put yourself into this positive mentality of, oh, you know what, I am actually acknowledging the things that you are good at and the things that you do feel confident about. And carrying that through from the morning throughout the rest of the day, it's actually a very powerful kind of experience. And for me, I've tallied up my time. That kind of adds up to 57 minutes from when I wake up. I think that I really want to get that shorter, but I also think that just dedicating that kind of time to yourself in the morning it seems like a luxury, but I also feel like it's something that is, if you are serious about it, then you can put that time aside so that you can kind of just start the day on your own terms and make sure that you know what you want to get done before the world and your coworkers and your family and friends all start vying for your time and attention. Okay, so this is something that I just wanted to throw out there for you guys. I just wanted to throw out a challenge, and I'm going to call this the morning detox. And this is something that I've seen to be very helpful, and a lot of other people have done. And it really is kind of, like I said, starting the morning and starting your day on your own terms. To other people bids for your attention time. So one of the most helpful things that I've seen and done is actually putting my phone on airplane mode. As silly and as first world problem as that sounds, putting my phone on airplane mode when I go to sleep, so that when I wake up in the morning, you know, I am just turning off my alarm, and when I look at my phone, I'm not just looking at a bunch of notifications, because I think the thing is, as soon as you see notifications, your first response is to kind of, read them and respond to them. And a lot of the times when you start doing that, the morning kind of just gets away from you. So by putting your phone on airplane mode, you kind of sidestep that. And what that does is that allows you to kind of just start the day on your own terms. So for this challenge, I would say just try for the first 30 minutes after waking up, keeping your phone on airplane mode, and really asking yourself, is that email really going to make that big of a difference if you don't answer within the first 30 minutes of waking up, right? I mean, you should probably only be answering email once you actually get into work and you're starting work. So not having email, not having social media, pull your attention away from kind of yourself and being mindful. Um, I think is a really important thing, especially in this day and age where we're all constantly bombarded by notifications. Um, and then the other part of this is, just thinking about the three highest priority things that you want to accomplish for the day. Either just thinking about them in your head or writing them down. Um, and then also just reflecting on the things that you're grateful for. So I just want to put that challenge out there for you guys. If anybody is really keen on doing this, please just try it for a week. Follow up with me. I'd love to hear what happens from this morning detox and how you feel after a week of doing it. And if you don't like it, you can always go back to doing things the way that you've done them before.
Jay, while you get into tools, just for you to know, I don't know where the time went, but we only have about 5 minutes left. So like this was like the fastest the knowledge drop has ever gone. But
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Okay. All right. So we talked about all the habits, and now we're going to talk about some of the tools. And I'm just going to breeze through some of these, and I'll also add a link to this slide so you guys can also look at these a little bit more in depth. So, in terms of tools, let's take it back old school, and let's go back to pen and paper. So analog tools. There's a quote here from Tech Central about just how good and how beneficial it is to kind of write things down instead of tapping things. And there's a couple different ways that you can do journaling and kind of planning. There's something called the bullet journal, which is a very cool kind of system that was developed by people that allows you to do a lot of managing all of the tasks that you need to do now, but then also planning and moving things from the past or in the future back and forth. And there's a whole kind of legend and key that you can adopt to kind of make the system work for you. It's a little bit hard in the beginning, but I think once you actually adopt it, it's actually a very powerful way of kind of organizing and controlling and managing your life. So that's the bullet journal. There's also something called the 5-minute journal. So this is something that you can either buy on Amazon or I'm just doing this myself in my own little journal where you answer those 3 questions that I went over. What would make today great? Talk about the things that you're grateful for, and then your affirmations. And the 5-minute journal says that they are kind of like the toothbrush for your mind. So yeah, you can either buy this as a physical journal on Amazon, or you can actually just start doing it yourself and just answer these 3 questions every day. All right, and moving on from the analog tools, going into the digital tools now. So I'm sure a lot of you are very familiar with this. So Trello is just a visual board / project management tool that a lot of people use. And it's fantastic because it's just it's so easy to use and so easy to pick up. And and it's so flexible because you can use it for all these different things. So a lot of people use it for wedding planning. For Cousteau, I created a Trello board for planning out each of the months before we even started it, and you can see kind of just how hectic it was. A lot of people do it for kitchen remodeling, and then a lot of teams also use it as a personal to-do list. One other thing that I use personally is a software called Jira, and I'm using this to manage my own life and projects. Every week, at the beginning of the week, I think about the things that I want to get accomplished for that week, and I can move each of my cards from left to right. So in each column, it's to do, in progress, blocked, or done. And then at the end of each week, I can also track kind of my productivity. So the gray is all the work that I committed to doing. The green is what I actually completed to doing, sorry. And so over time, I know this is really, really nerdy. Over time, I can actually see how productive I've been. And, over here, Sprint 11, I think I just went on a Netflix binge or Narcos or something, and I just completely disappeared. So I got nothing done. And then one last thing in terms of tools is just I know that there are a lot of freelancers out there. So if you need to track your time, then you can either use just a simple kind of Excel spreadsheet, or I've added links for these free tools. There's something called Top Tracker that is really cool that you can use, or Toggle. And I think Toggle is actually, it's time tracking, but then it also like gamifies it a little bit. So you can also compare kind of your time tracking against your friends. Cool. All right. So just in terms of homework, like I mentioned, the morning detox challenge. If anybody is keen on that for 1 week, please try that. Let me know how it goes, and I'd love to follow up with that. But I think just some action items for you. If you can just set 10 minutes aside, just start figuring out what your current habits are, good or bad. And then also start thinking about the different tools that you might want to use, the ones that I listed, or even if you want to explore some other tools that you want to use that I didn't mention. I think just having the tools there to encourage and reinforce the habits that you want to keep, are a really good way to kind of help you persist through that 22-day kind of hump, and getting you to the place where you actually start incorporating those good habits and getting rid of those bad habits that you don't want. And yeah, I hope that this is very helpful for you guys. Like I said, I'm a productivity nerd. If there's anything that you guys want to talk about or follow up on, there's all these different ways that you can reach out to me. Yeah, I think we can just talk about Q&A now, or are we completely out of time?
We're almost out of time, man. You can jump off screen share real quick. See if we can take one question or something if it comes in. But otherwise, yeah, I think what you just said, that you're open for people to reach out to you if they have other questions, and that you're just one Slack away if people want to try the 7-day challenge and get after you, or ask you about some tools that they might be trying out. But yeah, that was honestly the fastest the knowledge drop's ever gone for me. I don't know if it's because I'm drinking a spritz in Italy, looking at Vienna, or what happened there, but it was I looked at the time, I was like, oh my, 8 minutes left, wow. But yeah, man, thanks for doing this. It was awesome. Thank you guys that tuned in. And yeah, feel free to reach out to Johnson on the other end of Slack, or however you might want to communicate with him. And we'll see you in 2 weeks back here for the next knowledge drop. Thanks, buddy.
Cool. All right. Thanks, guys.
Ciao.